folks here, please, be comfortable. Another zafu. There are some shawls, blankets in the cupboard. There are benches for people who like to sit on benches that are in the cupboard. So,
You want this up or down?
down is great.
Okay.
So I don't look at it. Thank you. Good to go? Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, both here at Common Ground and in the Zoom world. I'm Patrice Koelsch, a longtime member of this community. I started here in 1994. And
Did the YouTube part here?
yeah,
Excellent. I'm going to put a few more cushions.
Okay, here, wait, Lisa.
sound back on this. Lisa?
Mhm.
Oh, she's on now.
Could someone, Dan, would you run and get Lisa? Because we're getting feedback. I think everybody needs to be muted. Is everyone muted on here? Because we're getting some other sound. I mean, in the Zoom room, I think.
We're controlling it out here. so
Okay,
we need to-
great. Great. So for people on Zoom and people here, really happy to have you. If it's your first time here today, I hope you will feel really completely welcome, really completely part of this community. We're really happy to have you here via Zoom or at the center, and hope you will really feel welcome and a part of this community that I love so much. And it really is a pleasure to be able to be here with you in person. And it's also just great to connect with people from all over on Zoom. And again, at the outset, I will apologize for any glitches that I am technically inept in a really maha way. And so I have people here assisting me, but I do apologize if anyone, especially in the Zoom world, feels that I'm not paying attention. So, okay. So what we're going to do this morning is we'll sit for about half an hour. I'll do a little guiding at the beginning, and then we'll have a little stretch. And then I want to talk about skillfully relating to the future is the topic for today. So find a posture that is both relaxed and stable. It feels like you have some energy, a posture that is going to be comfortable for you. One of the best meditation instructions I ever heard, and I'm a little embarrassed that I can't remember who I heard it from, was to sit with your full human dignity. Sit with that sense of uprightness and appreciation for what a wonderful thing it is to come together in this way, to practice, to give support to each other, to get support from each other. And another instruction that I love is enjoy your practice. Let's begin just by coming into the body and just settling in, being in this body right now with a sense of kindness and appreciation. And just feeling how it is when we take our seat, take our place in the world, And just open to the support that we give to and get from each other by coming together with these really noble aspirations. To be aware, to pay attention, to notice what's going on in the present moment. And I would invite you, as much as it is possible, to allow yourself to have a receptive awareness. So often in meditation, we're leaning in, we're striving. We have some fixed idea about what meditation should be, how a good meditator meditates. And I just would invite
How
you,
come I can't hear anything?
I just would invite you to see what happens when you are just in an open and receptive, alert state. Not trying to make anything happen. Just sort of trusting that open awareness, which is not to say that if you find it really supportive to intentionally rest the attention with the breath or another sensation, that you shouldn't do it. But do it in a way that is light, that is kind, that is not trying to get anything, but is just supporting an awareness of how things are right now. With this body, with this mind. And just see if in this silent period, we can just rest in awareness. And in these last few minutes of our initial meditation, I would invite you to allow the mind to entertain a sense of appreciation or gratitude. Appreciating that you were able to follow through on your intention to be here today. And just appreciating whatever other goodness comes to mind right now. So friends, if you are in the Zoom room, I would encourage you to look away from the screen and just place your eyes looking at something in the distance. Also stretch a little bit. So morning. Yeah, it was like
What's the so you and last time. Yeah.
my name is, for those of you who don't know me, and I am a longtime and make no corrections. Great. So to me, this was the perfect retreat, a combination of formal group meditation and lots of time for personal study and reflection. The book I took with me, The Asian Journal of Thomas Merton. This book had been sitting on my shelves, unread, literally. It was a New Directions paperback published in 1985, this big fat book, and it cost $3.45. And for those not familiar with him, Thomas Merton was a monk and a priest in the Cistercian or Trappist order. He was a Roman Catholic monastic, theologian, a prolific writer. He wrote more than 50 and social issues. When Merton was 53 years old, he was finally allowed to undertake a journey to Asia, ostensibly to participate in 2 conferences and to meet with Cistercian communities. Most Cistercians ran. But Merton's personal goal was to meet with Buddhist monastics to see if Asian monastic practices might invigorate Christian as masters, including the very young Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who just knocked the socks off Merton. Merton just was so and on November 4th, 1968, the 53-year-old monk met the 33-year-old Dalai Lama for the first time. And it blew me away because I was reading about this on November 54 years after this happened, exactly. And it was for me just a stunning coincidence to sort of imagine this having happened 64 years ago. And Merton met with His Holiness again on November 6th and November 8th. And he concluded that they shared an incredible that's kind of the highest kind of teacher. It's like having a PhD. So he was a Catholic. So the Dalai Lama just thought Merton was tremendous. Of 1968, he had an intensely mystical experience at the 12th century temple cut out of stone in the ancient city of Palanuwara. And I'm going to read what he says. This is the most amazing spiritual experience. He says, and it's actually this is one of the statues that he's visiting. He said, I'm able to disturb my feet in wet grass, wet sand, then the silence of the extraordinary faces, the great smiles, huge yet subtle, filled with every possibility, questioning nothing, knowing everything, rejecting nothing, not the peace of without reputation, with he was younger than I am today, and he was not expecting to die. He was entirely forward-looking. He believed he had a future. And it's hard to articulate how much this pierced me, his confidence that he had a future. And like many of you, I regularly do the 5 daily reflections, 5 worthwhile contemplations. I'm of the nature to age, I'm getting old, I'm of the nature to sicken. I'm of the nature to die, my death approaches daily, and all that is dear and delightful to me will be separated from me. I'm the inheritor of my past karma, the owner of my present karma, and the fabricator of my future karma. And this is worthy of contemplation. I try to do that every day. And when I read Merton, I just thought, am I really taking this in? Am I living in the delusion that I will always have more time, enough time? And what do I do? Do with the time I have. Many times I recite to myself, Shanti Deva's aspiration, the Bodhisattva aspiration. May I become at all times, both now and forever, protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a bridge for those with rivers to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp light, a place of refuge for those who seek shelter, and a servant to all in need. This is a prayer too that the Dalai Lama says, every day. And the Buddha's teachings are all about understanding suffering and its causes. They're all about wisdom and compassion. And the inevitability of death. It is compassionate to do whatever we can, while we can, to alleviate the suffering that arises from greed, hatred, and delusion. And this is where the second text comes in. And it was shared by a member of my community Dharma leaders cohort. And I actually encountered this second text the month before I was reading. Had the, again, incredible good fortune to be at the Rocky Mountain Eco Dharma Center, which is at about 8,500 feet north of Boulder. And I was there with my community Dharma leaders cohort. And we were examining ethics and talking about, how do we behave in the face of the ongoing and accelerating climate crisis. And an essay called Ethical Marxism for a Marginally Inhabitable Planet. Let me say that title again. Ethical Maxims for a Marginally Inhabitable Planet. And it was written retiring bioethicist, not Buddhist, David Schenck and Larry Churchill. And it was published in the Journal of Perspectives of Biology and Medicine, a Johns Hopkins publication. Not something I would normally encounter. And the premise of their essay is that the accelerating climate emergency will require ethical responses to unprecedented circumstances. And as clinical bioethicists who have had decades of experience focusing on care and what they call decision-making in catastrophic life and end-of-life situations, they encourage us to adopt what they call the cultural equivalent of advanced directives. And just let this sink in. Bioethicists are saying that we need to think about our world. We need to think about the future in the way that bioethicists think about circumstances. And they say any hope of mitigation or adaptation or transitioning out of social collapse will require all the cognitive and emotional resources we have, minds and bodies all working with knowledge and in acknowledgement and in concert. So the 93-year-old, amazing, entirely admirable Buddhist scholar and ecofeminist Joanna Macy recently said that if she could choose to be born any time in human history, she would choose now, because it is a time of immense crisis and peril. This is the time to show up and work together. I just thought this was so amazing. She's 93 and she said, if I could be true now, have this any time, most such a time of crisis. This is the time to be born. And I was thinking about that when I still get goosebumps when I sort of visualize her saying that. I mean, what a brave, brave, brave statement. So these two bioethicists, Schenck and Churchill, offer us 6 maxims. And maxim is a short guide about how to act that can become kind of a habit. It's not, a lofty ethical principle. It's a little directive. This is what to do. And they suggest that these maxims would enable people to respond to crisis in an ethically appropriate way. And I believe that they're entirely congruent with our Buddhist ethics. And they offer us a volatile future in a practical and grounded way. Again, remembering none of us know how much we will get to participate in this future. And that's the other thing, keep balancing, keep this idea that we just don't know. We don't know personally what our timeline is. So these are the maxims. The first is work hard to grasp the immensity, to grasp the possibility for most of us, this is inconceivable. And I think about some instances, even in the past year, when people have had to, in some ways, deal with what was totally inconceivable, like a third of Pakistan being underwater. Ukraine, inconceivable for people to be living in cities for months with water, without electricity. I mean, that these sorts of inconceivable social situations happen. That what we count on is no longer there, and we all are aware of how easy it is to be deluded. But sometimes we make the false equivalent that non-delusion equals despair. That if we think about this possibility, it means somehow that we are giving up, that we are acquiescing. Very binary. I know the Buddha is all about what is the middle way, the middle way. So seeing very clearly what the possibilities are, really understanding the science and how quickly things can collapse, how quickly things can fall apart, really maximizes the possibility of us having an ethically appropriate response, of responding grounded in equanimity and responding with compassion. But we really need to grasp the immensity of what can possibly happen. The second maxim is to cultivate radical hope. And actually, Frank and Churchill cite Joanna Macy here and her act. And they say, when the ordinary hoped for, the desired future has to be abandoned. Well, how we wanted things to be is not going to be the way things are. Then what is to be done to make that situation less awful? They said as bioethicists, sometimes they would encounter situations that were just almost inconceivable. And they talked about a rare condition in which infants are born where all their bones break off, including the infant's bones break. And they said, you know, for those parents, this is an inconceivable situation. This is as awful as it could be. And the question is, what do you do when things are as awful as they could be? And they say there is always a move to make that situation less awful. And it is sometimes just bearing witness, really showing up, being present, being kind, not abandoning people, behaving with integrity. This is what radical hope is, that it's that, Joanna calls it active hope, you know, that we can still do the future that we wanted may not happen. And sometimes it's clear the future we wanted. You know, you get a terrible diagnosis, or you hear about someone killed in an accident. It's not the future that we hoped for, but we can still respond in a way that makes it less awful. And that's really being grounded in equanimity and grounded in compassion. The third maxim is have a line in the sand. Be clear about what you will do and what you will not do. They said this is sort of like that internal advance directive, imagining the worst. No. I will not abandon. I will not save myself at the expense of others. I will bear witness. I won't run away. Have a line in the sand. And I think this really connects to this Bodhisattva vow. It's, and for me, it's also clarified by part of that reflection in the 5 reflections about all that is dear and delightful to me will be separated from me, will become otherwise. Knowing that that is inevitable somehow, I think, makes it more possible for us to draw this line in the sand about what we will and what we won't do. The fourth maxim, is appreciate the astonishing and unique opportunity. This gets back to what I mentioned earlier about Joanna Macy, like choosing. She said she would choose to be alive at this time because it's a time that requires so much courage and presence and people acting for the good of the future. We can be amazed at the interconnectedness of things. and their astonishing complexity. We can take joy in our ability to witness, to participate, to be in this with others. I mean, this is an amazing opportunity. We can appreciate nature. We can appreciate friendship, sangha, being in community, of being with like-minded persons, also committed in the way we are to compassionate action. And I go back and think also about Merton's experience with the statues. Those were 12th century statues. And he encountered them, and he had this amazing spiritual experience of clarity, of feeling grounded. And those sorts of experiences will still be open to us in some time, but we may find those as anchors. And I think about this also in the mudita, the joy in the good fortune of another, that we can appreciate when things are going well for each other. We can appreciate those moments, those small, the little and the big. We can appreciate the amazing complexity. I mean, a lot of us have been watching, the pictures that have come from the Webb telescope. Wow, wow, the beauty, the amazing complexity of the universe. That's still there for us. And as I was reflecting on this one, the astonishing and the unique opportunity, it came to mind what Ram Dass used to say in his late years, that what we were doing, he said, we're all just walking each other home. We're all just walking each other home. That's what we're doing. The fifth maxim is train your body and mind, which is something that we all here have made an effort to do. Somatic awareness, knowing how to use the breath to calm oneself, knowing how to ground oneself. That is really important. I remember years ago reading about a guy who was the head of all the SWAT teams in New York City. And he said he used to play recordings of sirens and alarms going off and do breathing practice to that. So that when the alarms went off, and he would really be able to come back to the breath and not be overwhelmed and make good decisions. And that's really part of this, making good decisions is being able to stay we all here as Buddhists have contemplated, the sort of suffering, impermanence, the not self characteristic, which I think about sort of the impersonal nature of phenomena. We've all contemplated this. And this really is important. Understand often of what happens. It's not raining on my parade. It's just raining. It's just raining. And in training our body, one of the other things that Schenck and Churchill say is sometimes helpful is to get skillful about shifting framework. Like think about geological time. Think that in 5 billion years, the Milky Way come together over the next 5 billion years. You just get really, when things seem to just get really tight and small, let the mind get very big. For some people, their ancestors, it's skillful way of giving oneself a different sort of frame that You have come from people who have suffered greatly and who have endured. So really training the mind and body. And I think for us as Buddhists, it's really grounding in equity. And I just put this out as a footnote here. There was recently an article by Stephanie Kaza, who just retired from being the head of the environmental studies at the University of Vermont, and she's now back in Portland where she lived. And she's a Buddhist, and her question was, how are sanghas prepared to respond to what's happening? And she talked about, in Portland, they had this incredible heat dome this summer, and very few people in Portland had air conditioning because it's Portland. And, it was like 110 degrees, and no one was prepared for that. And she said, no, our sanghas are we prepared to open our sanghas like as cooling places? Are we prepared to organize when there's a disaster, to work with our community? How are we anticipating what we might do as these really difficult circumstances arise? How are we, going to be of service? How are we going to be compassionate in a really practical way? And I think that's something really worth thinking about. So the sixth of these maxims is act for the future generations of all species. Speak for those without a voice, for the poor, for future generations, forests, seas, mountains, and act personally and politically to limit the damage being done to the biosphere. We talk about interconnectedness. We realize how there's dependent co-rising, that everything is connected. So we need to act with this sense of solidarity, with mutuality, with reciprocity. We need really to develop trust, and we develop trust by being trustworthy. So in all of our actions, this Shantideva, both now and forever, may I become at all times, both now and forever. So in all our actions, thinking about immediate impact, but also thinking about the future. And it's really interesting because Thomas Merton anticipated a future that did not materialize. He did not anticipate the abrupt end of his life. That was unthinkable, and unthinkable to his friends and many followers. Just this is the unthinkable has happened. So we're asked, not knowing how long any of us will be alive, to live with the understanding that our death approaches daily, and also that we bear some responsibility for what will happen as we confront the accelerating climate crisis and its consequences for all living beings. And the six maxims, I believe, offer us a way to skillfully relate to a very possible future. Work hard, the immensity, cultivate radical hope, have a line in the sand, appreciate the astonishing and unique opportunity, train your body and mind, and act for the future generations of all species. The Buddha taught that suffering comes from clinging, and our suffering will be exacerbated by clinging to delusions and fantasies. The six maxims are rules of and in the future. And the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity, the divine abodes allow us at every moment to abide in this boundlessness. You know, our chant is, I will abide. Abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. And this is skillfully relating to the present and to the future. We act in accordance with the maxim, and we abide. We abide in compassion. We abide in equanimity. So that's what I have to offer this morning. And I would just also like to just make a quick recommendation about kind of a practical way to get started. I would encourage people to read Joanna Macy's book, Active Hope. She wrote it with Chris Johnstone. It's called Active Hope, How to Face the Mess We're In Without Going Crazy. And the first edition, which is the one I have, I think was published in 2015. But there, I understand that has been updated. So I would really encourage you to read Joanna Macy. And if you're sort of having trouble imagining the immensity, there is a remarkable book called The Ministry for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson, which is, it's about this big. It is a really big book, but it is a book that begins with the unimaginable about what happens when there is a wave of heat and humidity that covers a great part of India, resulting in millions upon millions of deaths in a very short time. And that is not something that is fantastic. That is something that is entirely imaginable. So if you find fiction helpful in recommend The Ministry for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. So those are my remarks. And Shannon?
I just wanted to thank you so much for the talk, but I also just wondered on the page you can put all this. Including the prayer.
I'll see if we can probably put something in the Common Ground newsletter or Common Ground blog and make a note of it. So I would be happy to do that. Are there any other immediate responses today to what I said? I know it's a very daunting.
I just want to thank you so much. That's for me what are, I think, my two biggest personal motivators to practice is our mortality and the climate crisis, and how I view that as a human being and as a parent. So I just really thank you for tying those two together. I also listen a lot to towards the end of his life about a significant probability of the end of human civilization. And one of the things that is just so powerful for me in Buddhism is like looking at the immensity of that as being a likely thing and practicing a culture of contentment, of happiness right now, and holding those both in total truth. And learning how to do that. So thank you.
That